open the public session. Mr. Blair, thank you very much for joining us today. Very welcome. As you know, we've been conducting an inquiry into the On the Runs administrative scheme, and we see you as a very valuable witness. So thank you very much for coming. I understand you wanted to make a brief opening statement.
No, actually, I decided to just go straight into it.
Go straight into it. Okay, well, perhaps I could invite you then to perhaps tell us about the administrative scheme. Where did it start? Why did it start? What was your role in it? I think that would be very useful.
In the Good Friday Agreement, we had included a provision there that was very controversial, very difficult, but absolutely essential for there to be an agreement to set a framework for the peaceful resolution of the conflict in Northern Ireland. Part of the agreement was to do with prisoners and the release of prisoners, people who'd been convicted of serious terrorist offences, but who nonetheless were going to be released as part of the agreement in order to try and put the past behind us. And this was an integral part of the agreement. It was very controversial, very difficult. I think probably one of the most, if not the most difficult aspect of the agreement. Then, after we had made that agreement, there came forward an issue around those people that had not been convicted but might be wanted for terrorist offences and who weren't subject to the prisoner release scheme. And this became a very core demand of Sinn Féin and the Republicans that we should deal with those people, because if you're releasing people who are convicted terrorists from prison as part of a way forward for peace, then how were you going to deal with those people that hadn't been convicted but might be wanted in respect of terrorist offences? And over time that began as a small number of cases, and then it grew over time to a large number. The idea from the very beginning was to try and deal with this by way of a comprehensive scheme, so that you would have a proper and full way of dealing with all of those people that might be wanted for questioning or might be charged, and those people also in respect of whom the prosecuting authorities may decide there was insufficient evidence to charge them. But anybody who might be roughly within that category of people who could be wanted in respect of terrorist offences but hadn't been convicted. And they were known colloquially as the on the runs. Essentially what then happened over the period of time that I was Prime Minister is that we tried to find a way to deal with this comprehensively, and were unable to do so. What we were able to do is to review those cases, or to have the prosecuting authorities review those cases of people who might or might not be charged, and then in respect of those people who the prosecuting authorities decided they didn't want to charge, then they would be informed of that. I mean, I gave evidence to and have read in depth the Hallett review. I would adopt it completely. I think it is a sensible, fair, balanced review of what has happened. I think it gives a pretty accurate account of how this evolved over time into what was effectively a scheme for dealing with these people. It was not an amnesty, it was not secret, but it nonetheless dealt only with part of the problem that we had to deal with.
The people's flag is deepest red, it's shrouded oft are marked to death, and their limbs grew stiff and cold, their hearts blood dyed its every fold. Embrace the sky, this hand that I, we shake, will live or die, though cowards flinch, and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here.
Tilbury, member of the Justice of Northern Ireland Veterans, living in Barnstaple, North Devon.
And I'm Alan Barry. I'm the co-founder of Justice for Northern Ireland Veterans. We're a group of 22,000 veterans who served in Northern Ireland and support us.
Okay, and why have you organised this protest today?
Well, 3 weeks ago I found out Mr Corbyn was coming down to visit Barnstaple for fundraising for the North Devon Labour Party. It was a golden opportunity for us as veterans of Northern Ireland to vent our anger and disappointment at Mr Corbyn's involvement with the Irish Republican Army during the war in Northern Ireland. while our soldiers are being shot, killed and maimed freely and at will by the Irish Republican Army.
Jeremy Corbyn supported the IRA in their war of terror. He claims now in interviews that he was trying to negotiate a peace. He was never trying to negotiate a peace. MI5 actually opened a file on Jeremy Corbyn, and that's on public record because of his close links with the Irish Republican Army. He also held a 1-minute silence in the Houses of Parliament along with John MacDonald and certain other left-wing members of the Labour Party after the death of an IRA terrorist at the hands of the security forces. Mr Corbyn has always made it very clear that he supports the Irish Republican Army and a united Ireland. So therefore he is against everything that this country stands for in terms of fighting Irish terrorism.
And what would you like to achieve with your protest today?
We want to make sure that the young people who Jeremy Corbyn is trying to attract know about his past. It's very important that people do not forget the links that this man had to Irish terrorism and the sympathy that he held towards those terrorists. It's very important that the young people of today know about this. The IRA war of terror finished in the early 1990s. We lost 749 British soldiers in Northern Ireland. That's more than Iraq and Afghanistan added together. Granted, the war went on for a lot longer, but total security force dead was 1,360. Total dead and wounded were over 3,000. Jeremy Corbyn openly supported that terror group. Jeremy Corbyn did not try and negotiate a peace. Jeremy Corbyn openly supported IRA terrorism along with other Marxist members of the Labour Party, and we want to make sure young people today know that this man is a danger to our national security and should not at any cost ever be elected as Prime Minister of this great nation.
Thank you. And how long are you going to be here today so that people know?
As long as it takes.
Brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
At some point today, when Mr Corbyn comes, we'd like to hand over a petition to him, a request to visit us anywhere in the UK, to sit down and talk about his views on the IRA and our views on what it was like to face the IRA.
Mr Corbyn continuously avoids any contact with veterans because he knows that he really cannot. He's been dressed up now as something that he isn't. His own spin doctors within the Labour Party have smartened his appearance up. He's airbrushing out of the history books his links with Irish terrorism and his support for Irish terrorism and trying to dress it up in interviews that he's had when he's been questioned over it, that he was trying to negotiate a peace. Jeremy Corbyn was not involved in any peace negotiations. Jeremy Corbyn openly supported Irish nationalist terrorism, and basically was a friend of the IRA. He was not a friend and is still not a friend of soldiers who fought that vicious enemy in Northern Ireland. He is our enemy. Jeremy Corbyn does not represent us. God forbid that man would ever be Prime Minister of this country. It would be a major catastrophe for this great nation because he is one of the greatest dangers to national security that we face today. Hi everyone, Alan Barry here from Justice for Northern Ireland Veterans. I'm here with Vern Tilbury and a number of other guys who've been here for the day. Vern organised this event today. We've been here since, Vern's been here since 8 o'clock this morning. It's now 20 to 8 in the evening. We're at the venue here at Barnstable where Jeremy Corbyn has just arrived. There's about 800 people here today. The place is absolutely packed. You know, we've had a relatively good response from certain members of the public who are coming to support Mr Corbyn. As you can see, we've tried to highlight Mr Corbyn's past links with the IRA, and we're here to promote justice for Northern Ireland veterans and educate the people who vote for this idiotic man and very dangerous man about his past links with Irish Republican terrorism and his support for Irish Republican terrorism and his total denial to ever condemn Irish Republican terrorism. Jeremy Corbyn has been asked on a number of occasions to condemn the Irish Republican Army, and he has refused to do so on countless occasions. We intended on confronting him on this issue today. We knew he wouldn't stop, although we were told by Labour activists in the area that Mr Corbyn would stop. He didn't stop, as suspected. He drove straight through. Why? Ask yourself why. It's quite simple. How can he deny his links with Irish Republican terrorism? Mr Corbyn has attended IRA funerals. He has observed a 1-minute silence in the Houses of Parliament along with John MacDonald and other Marxist members of the Labour Party, celebrating, or commemorating should I say, Irish Republican terrorists who were taken out by us, members of the security forces, a legitimate force sent to Northern Ireland to protect the civilian population from Irish terrorism. Okay, Mr Corbyn is the greatest threat to national security that we face today. This man, this litigious individual, is the most vile creature that we could possibly ever imagine as our Prime Minister. He is a very, very, very dangerous man, and at all costs what we have to do, we have to educate the young. But surprisingly, we've all been standing here tonight and we've watched everyone go in here. Now, as a Conservative supporter, I've always felt that most Labour supporters were young people. I can tell you, we need to be aware of this danger we face, because going into that venue tonight, I would say at least 50% of the people going in were of my age or older. Okay, this man is becoming a real danger. He is appealing to people because he's telling them lies. He's telling them anything he can tell them, so as people will vote for him. Okay, he's not just fooling the young over promising them, you know, all he's promising them over university fees and everything else. He's also lying to the old. He's lying to everyone, and people are disillusioned. But what we cannot get away from is this. This man's links to terrorist organisations, not just the IRA, Hamas, or any other organisation, Hezbollah. All of these organisations, this individual supports, and he's a coward. He wouldn't stop and talk to us. Why? Because he knows that if he gave a correct answer, or if he told the truth, he'd be outed. He'd be outed as a terrorist lover. Thank you for watching.
Is there anyone else got any comments? Ben?
No, Alan said it all.